The viola excerpt from Tchaikovsky's Symphony No.6, the Pathétique Symphony, is one of the wonderful, often used excerpts for auditions. Why is it used so often? A lot of it has to do with A, the fact that it is a big viola solo in the section, and B, that there are a myriad of bow strokes. There's the saltando or ricochet in the middle, there's a lot of sautille, and a lot of finesse that we need with our bow. We also need to sing with the bow, especially at the beginning of the excerpt. So join me in our exploration of measures 19 through 61, the first two pages of Tchaikovsky No.6 viola part. At the beginning of this excerpt, we have those first two upbeat notes, the two eighth notes, to deal with. So the main thing is that they both have exactly the same bow stroke. I hear a lot of people play like this. So the first note's longer and the second much shorter. We need to keep them very, very even. So I make sure that I step there. So I always use just a little bit more movement of my arm on that second note to make sure that that second note comes out evenly with the first. Also, I try to vibrate this note and this note, both of them. So try to get vibrato on all of the notes. If you don't, it kind of sounds a little uneven. So all the notes have vibrato. From a bow standpoint, whether you play with a flat hair or a slightly leaned forward hair, I think it sounds a little bit better when the stick is leaned forward just a bit. So you can feather the notes a little bit more like this. For those two phrases, I try not to move the bow around. Some people lift. That throws off my timing just a bit. I end where I want to start the next part. Like that. You also have to make sure that the bow remains straight during that type of a stroke. Always make sure that you don't do this. But push your arm out a little bit so that the bow comes straight to the bridge. The next stroke that we look at is the Sautille stroke. In other words, a bouncing stroke without the hair leaving the string. So it's really an on stroke where the bow is played, lets it sound like an off the string stroke. So it's a good idea to practice this stroke. I'd recommend practicing like this, one note. If you play the note nice and short, then the bow will naturally come off the string. When I go up bow, I try to get the same idea. If you notice, I don't use my fingers when I practice this. Although it's not a bad idea to practice like that, when I actually execute the stroke, if my fingers move, it's only because they're giving to the bow on the string. Like that. One really good exercise I do is to play a bunch of these and then end with a nice long bow. So I make sure that I have control of the bow, and I can start up bow and do the same thing like that. That keeps my arm nice and relaxed for this stroke. So the next part like so. You notice that I end up bow, so I have to keep the bow very, very close to the string in order to make sure that that Sautille stroke is executed correctly. The next part starts piano. This is at letter A and has hairpins. So it's very important to really lean into the F sharp to show that hairpin. Then, like that. So those 2 eighth notes there are just like the beginning, where make sure the first one's not long and clipping the second, so it doesn't sound, but both of those notes are nice and even. The Sautille stroke on the C string is challenging because the C string takes a little bit longer to speak than some of the other strings. So what I do is, instead of the bow leaning so far forward, I'll play with a slightly flatter hair. Like so. And don't forget, there are hairpins. It's important in auditions to show everything on the page. So it's important to me not as much the crescendo when we make hairpins, but the diminuendos. Because a lot of people have an easy time making crescendos and a very difficult time making diminuendos. So I'm always very aware of the diminuendos. Also, left-handed wise, when I'm trying to get the stroke to be very clear, I'll put my fingers down much more rounded in order to get the notes to speak just a little bit faster. If you notice, I use vibrato on every single note. I work very, very hard to do that. It's easy not to. Coming up, we have a nice scale that we use our Sautille for. And after that, we have the famous Saltando bow, which is really a dropping bow stroke where we control 2 strokes. One way that I think about it is I'll practice it without the 2/16ths, but just playing the 2/16ths together as 1/8 note. So good way to practice. Like that. And then I'll start from above the string. Like so. If you go a little quicker, then the stroke will work. Like so. The next part of this piece is very difficult because there are a lot of string crossings, especially the large string crossing from the C to the A string. So we need to be careful to keep the bow very low to the string and retain our control so that we can make a very smooth crossing from the C to the A string. When working on the stroke, I'll often work just on one string at a time. After that, we have a series of repeated notes, but we have these hairpins that must be very clear. I make sure to vibrate all of the notes. After that, again, I have a lot of string crossings, and I have to make sure that I keep the strokes even. Generally, I divide this section into two places. This first one and this one. So the phrasing finishes here and starts here with a 3-note upbeat. And as always, I vibrate the last note.